Are you a clothing seller and you're thinking about stopping selling clothes on eBay? Well, we are in the exact same boat, and we're going to tell you our thoughts on that and some things you might want to think about before and after you stop. Welcome to the Prof Sales YouTube channel. I'm Prof Sales.
And I'm Just Ask Kaaren.
And we're very glad you're here today. This channel, we talk about being a reseller, being in business for yourself, being an entrepreneur, selling on e-commerce platforms like eBay and Amazon and so on, and just a positive community here in our little neck of the tube of you.
The neck of the tube? Like
nothing
what?
about
Wait,
that
what?
sounded good.
Rewind. Oh, it's like that guy that can talk in reverse.
Yes, it
Zip,
is.
zip,
It's exactly
zip,
like
zip,
that,
zip.
but not like that at all. So anyway, again, welcome to the show. Leave us a question or comment if you would like. We would like to hear from you and just kind of hear your thoughts on the show, on the topic, or it can be about other things too. And as always, what can they do also if they're enjoying the content?
Well, I'm just going over the top list, right? So follow it, like it, alarm it, remind it, comment either now or later, but consider sharing it. She'll like it, if you will.
Little button down below says share, creates posts, creates a link, and you can share this video with somebody, maybe somebody else who's thinking about stopping selling clothes on eBay or wants to go in a different direction.
Well, and in all fairness, we're going to talk about it in a way that they don't expect, from reading that title. And all.
Maybe.
Although this one's pretty straightforward. It's how to stop, right?
How to stop, yeah. And I'm curious, like out there in the chat right now, and of course watching later, how many of you guys are clothing resellers? Just, say, hey, I'm a clothing seller, me, whatever. I'd be curious to know how many people are clothing sellers on eBay, because I feel like of the people who watch on YouTube, I feel like it's a big number.
I feel like it is too.
I mean, when we watch somebody else's channel and we see a chat going by, or we're in a Facebook group or what have you, it seems like there's a lot of people who sell clothing on eBay.
Well, and a lot of people also not are only exclusive, but I'd say that a lot of folks that we encounter have either done it, are kind of interspersing it into their existing inventory, right? Or are looking into evolving into it at some point. So there you go.
There's a lot of people here saying yes. Margot, D. Comley, Jennifer Howe, Flipper Joe, South of Martindale gave a clap, so maybe, or hand raised. I guess that's what that is, right? I'm trying to get my emojis right.
Me.
Captain Awesome, Beth. Did you
say Captain Awesome?
Captain Awesome. That's what the name is.
Yes.
That's a good name. Zona Gal, Todd Davis. Thrift Daddy says, nope, never done it. Re-inspired. Clarence Ninja. Nope for the bearded picker. Kelly. Sonia's half clothing. Okay, that's fair. Cindy does a mix. Jeanette's 99% not clothes. I like that. 99% not clothing. And lots of other people too. So it's a lot of people, I think. And I wanted to talk about, maybe some reasons why a lot of people started selling clothes and still continue to sell clothes on eBay. And there are a lot of the same reasons we did, right?
Right.
I mean, clothing is plentiful in most cases. And when I say plentiful, I mean the inventory for clothing is all over the place between thrift stores, consignment shops, estate sales, yard sales, bulk liquidators, you name it, the bins, what have you. Clothing is everywhere. I feel like we drown in a sea of clothing.
This is true. It feels that way sometimes, doesn't it?
A sea of cotton.
Well, and when we talk about, getting into reselling, it's an easy way for a lot of people to start. It's often a cost-free way to start.
Right.
Honestly. I mean, you just have inventory, you go to your closet or your whatever, and there you go. Poof, you have stuff. So
that's true. And you probably have, and you're right, and you probably have clothing you don't wear, or you don't wear very often, or you don't need. Most of us do, here in the United States, for instance. A lot of us have a lot of, I do, and I'm kind of a clothing minimalist. And I still probably could get rid of a third, probably a third, maybe even 40% of the clothing I have, because I just don't wear it. It's just not, it's very rare that I ever wear it. It's a rare wear.
I'm looking at the shirt that you have right now.
This shirt I wear a lot, so we're not going to get rid of that one.
And my Yoda shirt I wear all the time. So
the Seam Store lounges in a sea of cashmere. That's kind of funny.
Well, if you're going to lounge in a sea of anything, cashmere's not bad.
Because, clothing is also easy to store.
Yep.
You can hang it. You can put it in bins. You could set it on a shelf in a box. It's not that big per item. I mean, each item is not that, unless you're selling things like coats. Shoes are a little larger, but still not that big. I mean, you can put, like the shoe racks back there, we can put 50 shoes in a pretty small square foot of space.
Right.
And
square
foot of space. I don't think that sounded right.
I get you. But also, let's go to my department, shipping, right? It's also easy to ship. It's arguably lighter in weight. If you're niching, especially, it's easy to reproduce the same thing over and over again, shipping wise. So not only are you saving, or your customers potentially saving money to do it, it's also easy. Like you just put it in a poly bag, or you put it in a padded flat rate, and away you go. So
yeah, and I think so many people start with clothing. It's almost like it's the big. Not, I don't want to say beginner, because that's not really the right word, because people begin in lots of other categories too. But it's sort of it's such a common way for people to get started reselling that it's almost like an intro to reselling. It's fairly simple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, clothing, you take photos, the condition can be a little tricky.
Right. I mean, it's almost like the first thing that came to my mind when you said that was it's almost like a rite of passage. And no disrespect to those of you that have never sold clothing before, but when folks come on to online e-commerce platforms, I think it is it's prolific, man. Like there are, let's be honest, a lot of reselling of clothing going on the interweb, right?
Yeah, but there's one big, huge knock on clothing that I have found, and a lot of clothing resellers have found out too.
What's that, Prof?
It sounded like that was scripted. It really wasn't.
It really wasn't.
She tries to make this show scripted, like in her own mind. And
no,
I sometimes play along.
No, I try to make it funny.
Well, you succeed at that. I, on the other hand, am very serious. It's very serious business. The problem with clothing that I see on selling on eBay, or really in a lot of places, is the actual amount of dollars you make per item is low. It's not high, especially on pre-owned clothing. And it's because pre-owned clothing tends to go specifically, and even new clothing sometimes goes for a lower average selling price, even though you didn't pay a lot for it. Like even if you only paid a penny for every piece of clothing that you sourced, you can't go below a penny. I guess free. You could go to free, but you can't go to -$1 or -$2, right? So you can only go so low in terms of your cost of goods for a clothing item.
Wait a minute, you can actually.
Somebody paid you?
Interject? No, like in the initial acquisition, perhaps, but people talk all the time about how they mess up on shipping or something like that. So if you were to ship said free item and you pay for the shipping, then yeah, there's your negative. Sorry, I just have to, we have to keep it real, just saying.
But in general, you can get it very cheaply, but you just don't sell the vast majority of it for a lot of money. So that means while your margin, the percentage is really good, but the actual amount of dollars you get per item is not that great. And we've talked about this before. If you're selling, a lot of eBay pre-owned clothing sellers are selling items that range from like $15 to say $22, $23, somewhere in that range. And depending on what they paid for it, you might be netting $10, $11 an item, maybe. In some cases, you're netting less than that. It just depends on what your model is.
Mm-hmm.
And that means to turn any real sales volume, you've got to move a lot of units, which means you have to list a lot of units, source a lot of units, photograph a lot of units, pack and ship a lot of units, store a lot, have a lot in your inventory. And it becomes very difficult to do that. So, and that's what we kind of ran into as well. I mean, we've ran into that. Would you not say?
Yes. And, to be honest, you've never really been a big fan. And it kind of speaks to, and I always jump around. I don't know where this fits in today's agenda, if at all. But at some point, just because you're good at something or knowledgeable about something doesn't mean that's what you should continue to do.
Right.
And your history was that, you were the Gap man, right? The Gap?
Right.
I don't want to call it the wrong thing. The Gap. So you started in jeans because it was something you had knowledge of. But then you realized at some point that you just didn't. Like you didn't like it. It wasn't fulfilling you. It wasn't getting you. I think more importantly for us, the bottom line for 2018 is that we wanted to raise our ASP, our average selling price, therefore increasing our profits. And we found that we just weren't doing it.
Right. So you want to shout that out?
I do. So, hey, Flipper Joe, thanks for that awesome super chat of holy moly, $9.99. And we're actually going to speak to this a little bit later in one of our solutions. But we're glad to see you, Joe, and you have been missed.
You're feeling better.
We hope you're feeling better, and it just broke my heart when we couldn't find you, and now that you're back, it just brings me so much joy. So we'll talk more about that later in a different way. So there you go.
Yeah, Kelly says she's a fan of quick nickels. I love moving product. I mean, I think everybody is, Kelly. I don't dispute that. The challenge is just staying up, keeping up with the sales velocity and being able to move enough nickels to make it worth it, to make it worth the time and energy you're putting into it. And you can end up buying yourself a job if you're not, or, creating a job for yourself instead of a business. And that's the tricky part with clothing a lot of times. So we definitely, as Kaaren mentioned, have been transitioning. We've been transitioning to higher dollar items, I think you said that.
I did.
And consignment items that we've been consigning for people are higher dollar items. Even though we're not getting as much dollar per item, we still are making more because the items are at a higher average selling price, and we're not paying for them. So that's cool. Like, we're not sourcing them. We don't have money sunk into them. We just have our time and energy to list them. And we've also been going after lower energy, higher dollar per hour items, like, for instance, like books on Amazon. Books are, not super high dollar amounts, but they're also cheap to get, but they're very quick to list. They're very quick to send in. They're very quick to ship. You're not taking photos. So when you look at it in that model and that viewpoint, they make a lot more sense than, some of the things we were sourcing before. But I wanted to tell you, so if you want to stop selling clothes on eBay. Or
wait, like Mad Libs, right? Insert right. Whatever it is you want to stop doing,
yeah.
Right? Fill in the blank, who knows what it is for you. Maybe it's clothing or shoes or false teeth or sunglasses or whatever.
False teeth.
I just had
Who are you selling those to? Pirates? George Washington actors?
He made his own teeth.
That's right.
So did my grandfather.
The hits just keep on coming. So if you want to stop, I would say consider a couple things. One is, are you stopping altogether? Or is it just selling clothes that you want to stop? Because, and this comes back to, why did you start doing this in the first place?
Right.
And why are you doing it now? And why will you continue in the future? They're going to say something.
No, I'm like waiting with bated breath. Like, why? Do tell.
Well, I can't tell them their why. Like, everybody in the chat and watching this video, you guys all have your own why, right? Like, you're doing this for some reason. Because I think was it you, or I mean, it was Eric, or somebody asked me the day about, like, do you like selling clothes on online? And I just said, it has nothing to do with clothes. It has not, like, I started with, like, I like being in business for myself, not working for someone else. And now, what is that going to look like? And then it transitioned into what I was doing. But what I was doing always comes back to that why of working for myself. So the way in which I do it is important for my results and how I do with it, but it's not really tied into my why. I could be selling spinners, fidget spinners.
Or false teeth. But it was our conversation, because you seem to, and I'll use the books as an example, you got this sort of burst of energy and happiness at the challenge of something new. Like, there's something for you about the books.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, I fear that whenever we get on and we talk about sometimes anything, like, let's just respect and acknowledge that we all do it differently, right?
Sure, of course.
And just because one person sells this or gets out of selling that, it's not a vote against it necessarily.
No.
It's just finding your way through all of this. And I asked you, I said, so, here you were going to be the jean guy. Do you like it? And your answer was, no, I don't have to like it. It just has to, get me there with my bottom line and fit into the program. And that's how that whole conversation started. So,
yeah, I mean, I like selling jeans in so much as that it was providing me ways to be in business for myself and not work for someone else. Is there anything intrinsic or inherent about genes that, I just don't consider what I sell to be a deal breaker if I have to sell something different in the future. I just don't look at it that way, nor do I consider it to be so super fulfilling that I can't imagine doing anything different, because I know that, this game always changes, and what made sense yesterday and today won't make sense tomorrow. So you've always got to stay on your toes and be evolving. And I'm cool with that. I have no problem with that at all.
Well, and I think you got I was gone for a little bit, and I think you got a lot of hassle from some folks about some of the changes that you're making.
Hassle's good.
Yeah, I think I'm being a little nice for some of them, but what it comes down to is
she's very protective.
The recurring. That's really why I came back, to make sure everybody behaved. No. So here's the thing. One of the recurring things about selling online that I've heard you and other people say over and over again, and for some reason we still have great debate and potential conflict over this, is it takes the same amount of time to list this 99-cent pair of sunglasses as it does to list that Vineyard Vines zip quarter pull thing that Ben gave me to sell, right? It takes the same amount of time. So why not capitalize on your time and spend that same amount of time, but make the most amount of money possible? And that's where we're going. Like, if we want to do this full time and together, it's not going to cut it for us going to the bins every day or every other day or whatever and selling, because we were talking about the math the other day, like in order to make that work, in order to make 100, did you do that, by the way, on your show?
I'm not sure what you're about to say. Where
in order to make $100,000 on a bins strategy or on a bulk strategy, you'd have to sell, you did it on the show. Yeah. You'd have to sell 660, round up 7,000 items in a year, right?
67.
But you have to, it's crazy volume, right? And how on earth, and then what do you have left for anything else? You
don't. And it'd be very hard to do that by yourself and build a business that way. And you can scale it down. You can say, well, what about 80? I mean, you can keep scaling it down to figure out what it is. But because I know people say, and somebody said earlier, I'll sell anything. It's really not about selling anything. It's about selling something that's worth it. That's worth it for your time and energy and capital you've got to invest into it. That's really the real question, not I will sell anything, because anything can be sold, but it's a matter of, is it worth it to sell it given what you've got to put into it?
Well, and how long are you going to sit on it? And do you have the space to just let it sit there for a year, or can you let your capital be untouched for that period of time, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
So sure, everything will sell eventually, but it's that, it's what are you willing to give up or to just let sit? Does that make any sense? In order for that to happen.
Right.
So other things to consider as we go to number 2 is, since, we're talking about evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you moving towards? Like, you're going to switch, and in this case, we're going to talk about getting out of clothing is the example that we're using today. But whatever it is that you're getting out of, moving away from, make sure that you have somewhere that you're moving towards, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that time? What are you going to do with that effort? What are you going to do with that capital, right?
Yeah, and I think that part, the evolution part, stops a lot of people from continue. Like, I think a lot of people get stuck on, I don't know what I want to do, so I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing that doesn't really work for me, or that I don't like, or doesn't give me enough profit, bang for the buck, or I don't have the space to do it or the time, so they just keep doing it. It's like staying in a job that makes you completely unhappy, and you find no joy in it whatsoever, and it's a horrible working condition, and you're only doing it because you haven't gotten enough over that inertia to go find a different one or do something different. Mm-hmm. I really think that's the reason, because in the society we live in today, saying to yourself, I am going to keep selling these widgets that I don't enjoy selling and that don't really make me much money or don't make me any money at all, and take a lot of energy and they take up a lot of space. I'm going to keep doing that because I can't figure out what else to do. That's really a cop-out and an excuse. Because the reality is there is just so many other things you could do, but it's going to take some energy to figure that out, to do the research on it, to move in those other directions. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. But you cannot just sit back and say, I'm going to keep doing this because I can't figure out what to do instead of this. That's silly.
It's inertia, and it's so easy to do. And we were just having a conversation about that. Like, you kind of get stuck doing what you know or what you have always done or what's always sort of worked for you. And you can't, like, it's hard to get past that and move on to something else.
Yeah. What?
We were just talking about that.
I know, we were just talking about
some personal stuff as well. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and people are saying, people don't think outside of the box. They're trained to be sheep. I don't think it's they're trained to be sheep. I understand what you're saying that, but it's more that just, I think as human beings, we get in a rut and we don't want to, it's seemingly to take the energy to get out of that rut and go to something better. It's fraught with unknowns. Like, you don't know if what you're going towards will be better. You know it's going to take time and energy to do it. It's going to be difficult potentially. And I think we just look at all those things and we make a calculation and say, well, maybe what I'm doing is not that bad. I think that's what a lot of us do. We think, well, I'm going to keep doing it this way because the energy to do something different is, and the outcome of what I'm going to do different is unclear.
Well, isn't perspective interesting? Because if we all did, like, there's all these ideas about how, if we got on today and said, these Keens, if you ever see them, you have to buy them. Oh, they're the end all. And then everybody's going to get on and they're going to sell them. And then the market's going to get flooded. And so here's the thing about perspective and what people are drawn to and what their evolution is, their inertia, et cetera. Like, everybody does it differently. And in the chat right now, one person, and I can't read because I don't have my glasses on, but one person is saying that FBA is the answer. Another one's saying eBay is the answer. And that's awesome. That's how this machine works. It's how commerce works, right? That we have these different options and different approaches. And if everybody did everything the same exact way, imagine how that would be.
I see people too saying in the chat, I need to figure it out. Amazon, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what to do on eBay. I don't know, do anything. Like, start.
Well, there's that. Mm-hmm.
Just start, because honestly, you're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes. You made mistakes when you started on eBay or whether you start on Amazon or wherever, and you're going to make them on a new platform as well. Like, the platform is not the answer. It's what you're able to get your hands on, how much time and energy is worth it to put into it. How can you store it? Is it, all those questions are really what come together to figure out, if it's the right thing for you to sell, assuming that you have like this great why for why you're even doing all this in the first place. But if you're doing it just to make money, that's always kind of a tricky reason for me, because there are things more profitable than reselling, but at the highest levels, reselling is really profitable as well. You're willing to do those things and go in those directions, but most of us aren't. Like, we kind of settle, and I'm guilty of that. Like, oh, well, I can just, sell a few jeans here, sell a few shoes there, do this, do that, and just get by, instead of thinking, man, it would be nice to thrive, but I just need to go in that direction.
Right. And it just dawned on me that we're talking about getting out of clothing. But your decision to get out of something and move towards something else or in a different direction, that could be because you just tried something. And here I am on my cheerleader soapbox and saying that, try. You'll succeed or you'll fail, but you tried. And a failure is never just a failure. It's an education. It's a learning experience. So if your decision to get out is based on, it just didn't work for me, right, or I wasn't good at it or whatever, that fits here too. And we're never going to take, I failed at something. Well, no, you didn't.
You learned.
You learned something,
sure,
and now you're going to go in a different direction. I think one of the main points that we want to stress today is just don't stop. Like, you can't. Like, have somewhere else to go with it, to put it. And maybe it's not reselling, maybe it's something else. But, evolve toward whatever the next step is.
What's so great about what you just said is so many people who are successful in reselling or anything really, they had these events and things happen to them that from the outside looking in, we would all view as failures, and yet they kept going, and that's why they succeeded. Because they didn't let those things define their entire existence in that particular field, that particular endeavor, and they decided to keep going, So that's just par for the course. I mean, don't sweat that stuff.
Your turn.
Edward, thank you so much for the super chat. It says Prof Sales, how I started this entire journey. Thumbs up. That's awesome. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very kind to you. Yeah, how I started this entire journey, I think he's saying is how to stop, or how he started selling clothes on eBay, I would guess.
Right. And then you'll have to update us on what does it look like now for you, Edward, because I don't think it ever, even if we're doing the same thing, it never looks like it did when we started. Because the platform itself, if we're talking about eBay, the platform has evolved, right?
Yeah.
So if they want to get out, no matter what it is, no matter why it is, no matter how do they do it?
I think one thing you can do is just blow out. You can have a blowout sale on your items on eBay if you want, but make sure like you can try to sell your items really cheap, and they will sell. It'll take a little while. They'll sell eventually, but make sure you don't eat shipping costs. Like if you've been doing free shipping, or maybe you've been charging a nominal fee, because if you're going to start selling all of a sudden a $15 item and you're going to sell it for $5, well, now your profit in that item is pretty much gone. And if you're eating some shipping costs there too, you literally could be selling that at a loss, or or even break even. And I think you can still blow things out without losing money.
And Ninja, when I was talking about when I added on to your how do you sell something at a loss, and I said, well, you could not include the shipping. Ninja said if you had a free shipping return on that too. So just have your big sale, but be smart about it. Like you can give the stuff away, but don't lose the farm in the process, I think is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you try to sell it, and then if you can't or don't sell it, do it that way. Consider donating it. You'll get a tax write-off, or giving it away to someone else that might do something with it, maybe a family member, another reseller, whatever. But the donation in and of itself is not a loss either, because like I said, you can write it off on your taxes and for fair market value. So then you're getting whatever you would have paid for it. Goodwill has a great link on what the value for used clothing and used items in general are for tax purposes.
Oh, that's right.
The PDF that I always use.
Yeah.
If I can remember, I'll send it to you and you can put it in the comments.
Number 3 is just selling in bulk online, which is sort of similar to the first one, having a blowout sale, but you could bulk a bunch of items together. Like, for instance, if you were selling jeans and you wanted to blow those out, I could very easily bulk those together by, say, brand and size. Maybe fit as well. That would get a little more complicated, because there would be people who are like, man, I really like Lucky Brand jeans in size 8, sweet and lows. And I could put 2 or 3 of those together and sell a bulk one and get rid of 2 or 3 items with one listing instead of having 3 separate listings, which is pretty cool. And usually that way, if you do that too, you'll save some money on the shipping, because shipping 2 or 3 items together is usually a little more economical than shipping just one item. So that's a good way to not get crushed on the shipping as well, selling bulk. Or you could sell just like a big, huge bulk order, like, all right, here's 50 pair of jeans or 100 pair of jeans. Of course, shipping on that's going to be very expensive because it weighs a lot. But that's definitely a way you can get rid of a lot of items or get out of a niche as well.
So I thought it was my my lack of good vision, because James keeps saying something toot, and I thought I was reading it wrong, but there's someone in the chat called Toot. And
Yes.
I say this because they donate what doesn't sell to a favorite thrift, and then they sort of do a you scratch my back, I scratch yours. But what we do, something to consider, is when we donate things, we donate it to a group that we will not frequent. Because with jeans or with other items that we were acquiring, we didn't want to have to potentially source it and buy it again.
Right.
And we're not going to mark it or mar it with a Sharpie or something like that. So we end up giving our clothing or jeans to a crisis assistance, a local crisis assistance nonprofit here, where the items actually go directly to the end user, so to speak.
So before you do yours, I want to answer Ninja's question, because it's a good one.
Is it a real question?
Yes.
Okay.
Clarence Ninja says, question, why not just keep the item up on eBay until it sells in a few years? And that's a good question. Well, the answer is this. You certainly could do that. You've put the time and energy into the item to list it and store it and so on. but your capital in that item is also still tied up. So let's say you had 500 pair of jeans that were not moving for you over a space of time, and you paid $5 each for them. That's $2,500 of capital that if you could liquidate, even just in break even on them, and pull out the $5 from each one, you could take that $2,500 and spend that on capital, or spend that on items that would move. Mm-hmm. So you have an opportunity cost there by continuing to keep your capital, tied up in that item. And I can't tell you what the right time frame is for an item or your business. Of course, if you want to continue to hold on for a sale, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it, but just realize that you could be flipping that money back out right now, maybe into something that would sell quicker or even for more profit than the item that is tied up in.
Mm-hmm. So I'll read the last one, but
Yep.
Then you get to talk all about it, because it's interesting how we had decided what to do on the show today and what actually happened today.
Yeah, this just happened.
So this is way too cool. So so we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk, people. So one wonderful thing you can do, and what speaks to this whole networking community thing that we've got going on, consider selling to another reseller. Take it away, Prof.
Selling to the competition so they can crush your margins. No, that's not what I mean at all. We've talked about numerous times in this channel being part of this community and making connections and networking with other people and making friendships and so on. Maybe people that live in your town, maybe they live across the country, doesn't matter. So in doing that, you have always in your arsenal here a potential place to get rid of items that you no longer want to sell, but maybe that person does sell. Mm-hmm. So I started looking around our house and what we were selling and what we still had stored there, because we had some items stored there. And I realized that, we're not really in the selling of hanging clothes business anymore. We're still selling jeans and shoes, but we're not really selling hanging clothes. We had about 75 items listed that were hanging, and then we had about that many again that were not listed. So about 150 items. And I realized that those items were not making us any money. They were very rarely selling, like maybe one a month, maybe two. I certainly didn't want to put more time and energy into them, and they were taking up space, and I was not able to free up capital. So,
and the things that weren't listed were definitely not even ever going to make us money, to be clear.
No, probably not, because we weren't going to list them. And if we were going to list them, we're not going to sell them, right? So I decided to reach out to, my good buddy Luke of Endless Entrepreneurs and say, hey, man, I got a bunch of stuff that I know that you're starting to scale up your listing and you have people listing and taking photos for you. Curious if you'd be interested in it. And he was all for it. So he came by here probably about an hour ago, about an hour and a half ago, and he picked up all of it, all 150 items. And I sold it to him in a bulk lot for a good price. And per item, I got some capital back out of it. Mm-hmm. He got inventory that he can sell, some of which he might not sell, but that's okay. He got a good price on it. He was happy with it.
Everybody was happy.
Everybody was happy. Like, it was a win-win. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's always an option for you. If you know somebody in your area that's a reseller and they're selling something, let's say it's clothing, that you don't want to sell anymore or you don't know much about, offer to sell it to them. Even if you take a loss on how much you paid for it, it's still better than just sitting there and not getting listed or not ever selling. Mm-hmm. What are you going to say?
No, I mean, yeah. And I'm thinking about all these instances where we're this community and we've networked. We have friends that have a consignment store, and we've gone and sort of had a private sale with them and gone and bought, some pieces, right?
Right. And they're leveraging that towards us. So
right.
And who knows where it'll go? Like, and Luke knows if he runs across a lot of books that I might be able to sell on Amazon, he'll contact me. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just the way it works, so keep those options open with other resellers. They're not just like people who don't want to, they're not your competition necessarily as much as they can be a resource.
Right. Yeah. And I can't say enough how important it is to, and how much we value the community and how much we value networking with other resellers. It's such a valuable, I don't know, like it's in our top 5 for what we consider assets for our business.
For sure. So let's talk about what the evolution has been for us, and I think it could be for you guys too. I mean, it's very simple and it's commonsensical, I think, but it's worth talking about. Do you want to do the first one or me?
Well, I have to address Adam.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
So I think it is Adam, blue on my end. Apparently, I missed a good chat the other night.
Yeah.
I always miss a good chat.
I went
Adam,
live from the couch.
I know.
Sounded bad.
Well, maybe next time I could be live from the couch. But you'll have to fill me in later and tell me all about the things I missed. Thank you so much for the super chat, Adam. And I can't wait to see you in Vegas.
I would agree with you, Edward Holgate, who said my goal is 16K a month. And so I need to have 80K a month in sales to get that. I don't believe there's a way to do that on eBay with at least 5 or 6 employees. I agree. And even doing that is a challenge. I mean, that's a big goal. But you're absolutely right. Like doing it by yourself would be really, really difficult, if not nearly impossible. So.
And we did the solo math on that. Like we do it all the time, scenarios.
Yeah. I mean, you need to figure out math. I don't mean to say it like that and make it that like it's coming off snooty, I guess, when I said that. And that's not the way I intended it. I mean, if you want to, if you're thinking about quitting your job, and this is one of the things I said the other day, I said, you should probably plan on quitting your job. You're going to need probably your income from this plus maybe 50%.
Right.
To be safe. 25 would be kind of the low end. I would definitely not go lower than that. And then you can start applying that to your sell through and what you're making. I mean, and then it just becomes a math problem, guys, and think, well, can I scale this up to this level? And if not, then maybe I need to do something different or hold off on quitting my job or going full time or whatever it is. So what is this math you speak of? All right. Evolution, repurpose your space for new niches. So if you're going to sell something else other than clothing, what's your space going to be like? Like I was looking at today, what sort of space I need to keep some merchant fulfilled books here that I'll sell on Amazon. Well, it's a bookcase. A bookcase is a pretty known quantity for how much space it's going to take up. Not that hard to figure out. Shoes were another one we did with this shoe rack because we knew how big it was and we could put them back to back and how much space they would take up. Same thing with the black racks for jeans. So you've got to repurpose your space for the new niches and figure out if you've got enough room for it or how it will work. Containers, shelving, fixtures, what have you.
Right. And the money, investing that capital in new inventory, right? So you have space to repurpose and now you have this new money to work with, right? What are you going to put it towards?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to start selling in a new niche, well, now you've been having this sourcing budget each month, right? Whether you know it or not, you've been spending money on sourcing. Maybe you sold through some of your older items of the niche you were in, and now you got this new capital. What makes the most sense in terms of where to invest it in this new niche? Like, like if you were selling books, for instance, and books is a great example because let's say you've got $500 of capital to spend on books. You could argue going out and getting a lot of different, cheap books at thrift stores and estate sales and yard sales would be one strategy where you're only going to pay maybe $2, $1.50, $1, even less sometimes. Or you could maybe spend that $500 and spend a little more per book and buy textbooks and wait for textbook season. You'll get a bigger bang for your buck, but you won't buy as many items. So there's different ways of looking at that depending on what the niche is you're going into.
All right, number 3 belongs to you.
Number 3, educate yourself on the new niches. Take the time to do that. And the time to do that is probably before you go into them.
Or as you're going.
And by the way, we need to talk about what that means. What does that mean to you when I say that?
What does what mean?
Educate yourself on new niches. What does that look like in your mind?
Well, research. I mean,
right.
you have this time now. Whatever you were spending in the old ways, the old grasshopper ways, you're going to put it into the new stuff, right? So you have to. What do you mean? Comps. Looking up what's currently selling, what has sold.
Because some people do it. They go on social media and they listen to people complain about said niche and decide that that's their entire research they did. And that doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, if that's all you're going to do, then I'm going to challenge you to, you're not going to be very successful.
That's like watching the local news and thinking that's an accurate portrayal of your community.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, no, I'm not going to. And you have to take all that with a grain of salt, right? And the fact that it's social media, doesn't that tell you something about the validity and the honesty and the truthfulness? Like, people only put out into the universe, most of them, on Instagrams or Facebooks, only what they want you to see. Like,
Right.
oh, look how successful I am. But then they never show you, like, one of the things is numbers, right? People throw, oh, I make so and so. And if you've been doing this for any period of time, one of the first questions, the logical questions you should ask when it comes to numbers is, all right, is that gross or net? And all too many times, people are just throwing down I make 20K a month. But what they're really saying is that, well, that's how much I took in, but then my cost of goods actually was this and my expenses and my overhead and this and that. So you're not really getting a true picture, I don't think.
Right, and it's not about saying that one person's results are better than another's or one model is superior to another. It's cliched, but it really is what makes sense for you and what you're willing to work for. Like, I don't have any desire to work for low profit dollar items anymore, because even though the return on investment is great, like if you sell a $1 item and net $5 on it, that's a tremendous return on investment.
Sure.
But you kind of move a lot of items to make any real money. Mm-hmm. In my mind, if you need to make $4,000 a month from this business, you got to sell a lot of items. You got to sell, 800 items? So you got to sell an awful lot of items to do that. And I can't imagine selling 800 pair of jeans, let's say, in a month. That would be, that's a lot of jeans to move in a month. And it's a lot of jeans to list and photograph. So it's like, for me, that model wouldn't make sense. But for other people, they might have a different perspective. They have different resources available to them. They want to move in that direction, and that's fine. So you can't look at it as just like one size fits all, because it's not the case.
Well, and at one point in your evolution, we were all jeans all the time.
All jeans, yeah.
Come
on down.
And we're not saying that just because we're changing that it's wrong. Like, we're not suggesting that it's wrong. It's just like, okay, we need to move towards something else now, and we're choosing to go in a similar direction, but we're just sort of dialing it in a little tighter in a different way.
Did we say number 4 yet? It's the last one. I don't think we did.
Oh, no. Well, one of the things that makes sense in your evolution is consider selling on changing platforms, or your selling model for that reason. Either one of those. Like, consider being open to change, that the way it is when you first started out is not necessarily going to be the way it is, along the way, or when you get to the end, or maybe you don't get to the end or whatever. But you kind of have to be open to change. And I struggle with that. Like, you change anything around here. Like today, we brought in all this stuff because we knew Luke was coming by. And guess where it was? Where did it end up? The logical, cleanest, neatest, clearest space in the warehouse, shipping department right here.
There's nowhere else to put it.
Not a happy camper. So I had to do all the shipping with all this crap on my table. But I persevered and went through it.
Yeah, I think changing your model or changing to another platform, or not even changing platforms necessarily, maybe you just are selling on another platform. I like the diversification of it. We've talked about that before. I think changing your selling model, I think that makes a lot of people really, really nervous.
Sure.
But I find it kind of exciting, because it's something new to learn. It's something new to explore. It's going to have its bumps. But guess what? So did the one you're doing now. People say they hate change, and that drives me nuts, because that. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because I hate change. Carry on.
But the reason I don't agree with that mindset is, it's not like the way it is now, it was always like this.
Right.
At some point it changed to how it is now. Mm-hmm. So it's always an evolution. Whatever it is you're doing, whatever point you are in life, whatever it is in your business, it's always evolving. It's always going to be changing. So rather than fighting that and, getting upset, why not just embrace it and say, you know what? That's going to be what's going to keep me energized and motivated. It's just that there's going to be something new to learn, something new to go down, and just change your perception of it. And I think you won't have so many problems with it. That's my thought. It's a little public service announcement.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me know if you two decide to do the zip line in downtown Vegas, Adam.
You know,
On
Adam,
Fremont Street? I know the one you're talking
we
about.
are zipline connoisseurs, so there is a
that's true.
really, really good possibility we will do it. We zip.
We zip. All right. So, but anyway, that's our thoughts, guys, on how to stop selling clothes on eBay. And, you know, obviously you could just stop. But, you know, you got to decide what you're going to do with all the ones you have and what you're going to do next.
And I think somebody said that, and I don't know if they were being jokey or what earlier in the chat, but it's short-sighted to say just stop. Right. Like that's not a real answer.
You're going to do something else with that time.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do with your time? What are you going to do with the existing inventory? So it's easy to say just stop, but why is it then that so many people don't, that they just get stuck? And like you said, in order to thrive, you have to be always looking at your current model, your current way of doing things, and how can you make it better? Because it is, you're right. The one sure thing is that everything, it's going to change. It's never going to be exactly how it is in this moment.
No, it won't be. You know, and it's going to, I mean, I just think that for a lot of people, and I've, again, fallen into it, they get into this rut and they just decide that that's the way it has to be. And anything that disrupts that is seen as just stupid, as a bad idea, as, you know, harmful to them. They take it personal. I'm like, guys, this is just business. Like, this is just the marketplace. eBay and Amazon and e-commerce, they don't care about you because you don't exist and they don't exist to you either. They're just a means to an end. I have no particular love for eBay or Amazon or any of these platforms. They are a means to an end. That's the way I perceive them. I don't fall in love with an e-commerce platform, and I don't think you should either. I think it's a mistake because once you do that, now you're going to live and die by what happens on that e-commerce platform to you. And there's going to come a point potentially where the way that platform evolves, you don't like anymore. And now you're going to be crushed. And it just doesn't make sense to me. Just go back to your why. Like, why are you doing this? If you want to be in business for yourself and you want to be a reseller, then do that. And do that in all the ways, on all the platforms, with all the things you need to sell, however it makes sense, given all these things that are going on behind the scenes in your personal situation. So don't get so caught up in loving eBay or loving Amazon. I just think it's a bad road to go down. Sorry.
And then you're putting in all the emotion to it, right? Take that out of there. Take the feels out of it. It's business, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It's hello, Bubba's wife. What's up, Mr. Sadie? Yeah, so so what else we got on the agenda here? We're talking about eBay and eBay Open, I think, because people are talking about Las Vegas.
And ziplining and all
Las
that
Vegas, as I like to say it.
Yeah, we'll be there.
We'll be there.
So, I did say I'm not sure if Flipper Joe is still in the chat, but I did want to give another shout out to community and how important it is. And recently, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it, but he had a bit of a health event, a health scare, right. For those of us that didn't stay updated on it. And, you know, I think forming relationships, especially local ones, is important because for a lot of us, it's a solo business. So just kind of keep those that mean something to you close. Meet regularly, communicate regularly. And I will get way too mushy if I go on and on about this, but thank heavens he is back home now and on the mend because he gave us quite a scare. And maybe we can come up with some sort of reseller, be on the lookout for the reseller app or something because that was
yeah, so. Definitely, and it's definitely important to keep a connection to the community for the reasons we said before. Like they can be helpful to you. They can. I mean, so many people in so many of these groups I see complain about it's such a lonely endeavor what we do, and it's like it doesn't have to be. I mean, you're going to have to maybe step out of your comfort zone and approach people and form connections and bonds, and some will go well and some won't go so well. But ultimately, you have the power to connect to other people around the world. I mean, technology's given us that ability, even if you're not able to go physically and do it. So just make the effort. It's worth it. You know, it's going to have its bumps as well sometimes, but ultimately the people that we've met in this community that we've connected to have just enriched our reselling life and our lives so much that it's just really hard to put a price on that. So take the time and invest.
Had we not been open to that idea about sharing and networking and communicating today, and Luke coming by, I mean, we've come full circle, right? If you go back when you first said to me, yeah, there's this guy, he lives like a mile from us, turns out, wants to get together, wants to do some stuff.
I remember that.
And I was like, why? What's in it for him? What does he want? How's it going to affect us? And it was from that first, and I'll tell you, that first IHOP meeting with Luke, and I fell in love with him because he was very direct and he was a cool guy and he was intelligent. And how long ago was that? Like a year or more at this point?
That's been probably nearly a year and a half.
Almost 2 years. We'll have to go back and look.
I think it was beginning of 2017.
But I am so grateful for his friendship, for his input. Like it's like that relationship has grown so far beyond, pancakes at IHOP. And had we not taken that step and been open to his input, his support, his knowledge, his sharing, like I don't know if we would be the same, if he would be the same. I think he would still be married to Shannon because she's pretty cool too. But we have all benefited and grown from that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to make relationships, guys. That's just part of this. So make sure, you're reaching out to others out there, networking. And if nothing else, even if you're thinking about going off, continue or quitting selling clothing or quitting selling whatever it is you're selling on eBay or whatever, that's a person you can talk to. That's a person you can bounce ideas off of, see what they think, and it may help you, it may not, but it's still just somebody to talk to and, that will understand when maybe your husband or your wife or your kids, whatever, won't because they don't really live in this world that we in. I mean, we're not that different than any other community, really.
I see what your extreme did there. Networking opens a mammoth of possibilities. LOL, haha. See what you did there?
Yeah, the mammoth is.
But once, here's a challenge, and I know that I shouldn't be doing this at the end, but the second you give up the idea that guy over there is your competition, you will prosper and thrive as a result. Like the minute you stop looking at that other reseller in your same town as a competitive person instead of a resource for you, you will do better.
Right, because and that's a great point because so many people are out there and they are willing to share what they know. And if you're willing to share what you know too, that's a great symbiotic relationship. You can share things with each other that even in your own hometown. And I know so many Amazon sellers who go behind each other in the same town. Some people do retail arbitrage and so on. And they still find things even if the other person has already been through that store or that area because they're doing it differently. They have a different criteria and they make connections with each other because sometimes they'll tell each other, hey, I know you like to sell this and it's really not my wheelhouse, but this area, these stores, this place has a bunch of that. So, that's, you're only going to get that if you reach out to others. I mean, there's no other way around it.
Well, because it's absolutely impossible for one reseller to source all of the things, all of the stores, all of the time. Like, it's just impossible. Yeah. So,
and when people say like it's all been shopped out and there's nothing of value here for me, that's kind of just you giving up. I mean, there might not be a lot there for value for what you're doing, but go somewhere else. Do something different, go in a different direction. I mean, that's just kind of like we feel sorry for ourselves. And I've done it too. You walk out and I've gone into stores before and not found a single pair of jeans that I wanted to sell. That's pretty amazing when they have like 300, 400, 500 pair of jeans and you literally cannot find one pair. It doesn't happen often, but it's happened where we've blanked.
Well, but that's the perfect example that supports what we're talking about here because the jeans that you source now are not the jeans that you sourced 5 years ago. They're just not. And I can tell you after doing a physical inventory and saying, Levi's signature, what were you thinking? Because we pulled out and we had to, it's interesting to see the evolution of what we buy and how we buy it and all that. So there you go.
South of Martindale says, yep, getting skunked sucks. Fair. It does
It
suck.
does suck, but it happens. Don't set yourself up for unrealistic expectations that you're going to get home runs all the time. Like every now and then you do blank. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
Pick yourself up.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Quit? Because I'd be like, imagine a baseball player. Oh, I struck out one time and I quit. You never really knew what you could accomplish.
I don't think you ever really started if you're going to quit that easy.
No,
just saying.
Definitely not. So, all right. That'll do it. That's a wrap. So check out. I heard something weird. Oh, we just sold something. So check out the video that hopefully will be above my head at the end here, and consider subscribing and liking this video as well.
Like it, share it with your friends.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna catch you next time. We'll be back on Wednesday, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
As always, this is Just Ask Kaaren.
Prof Sales
Saying good sales to you.